Commission meeting for April 21st will come to order. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham.
Present.
Commissioner Galt.
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Mayor Kaler.
Present. Tonight, Commissioner Abraham will do our invocation, and our Pledge of Allegiance after that will be led by John Holtgrew, and he's a Paducah Tillman High School sophomore, so welcome, John. Nice to have you here. So we'll have our invocation first, and then John will come forward.
Father, which art in heaven, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come before you to serve. Father, we pray, our prayers go out to those Christians across this globe that are being persecuted for their faith. This should not be a surprise to us because in your word you speak of times like these. So let us collectively pray for them, their families, their resilience. These things we ask for in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I have a proclamation today. I believe Wednesday is Earth Day,
22nd,
22nd.
isn't it?
Today?
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Wednesday.
You're just a little shaky. From the Office of the Mayor, a proclamation, whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth, and whereas it is understood that the citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges, and whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns, and whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify this global movement to achieve maximum success. Whereas Earth Day is the beginning of a new year for environmental stewardship, commitments to implement sustainability efforts, and commit to an Earth Day resolution. Now therefore, I, Gail Kaler, Mayor of the City of Paducah, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2015 as Earth Day in Paducah, and encourage citizens, businesses, and institutions to commit to building a sustainable and green economy. And I think they're having an event over at the park on tomorrow. So anyone that has time to attend that, please do. Commissioner, we'll go into our ordinances adoptions that we went over last week. Commissioner Abraham, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the city to execute a First Amendment to Memorandum of Lease and the Third Amendment to the Tower Option and Lease Agreement with AT&T for the benefit of the city. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City Commission hereby authorizes and approves the City of Paducah to enter into agreement with AT&T for the lease of space on the 800 megahertz tower and the lease of real estate located at 510 Clark Street at the rate of $1,633.50 per month for a period of 5 years, and that commencing on March 1st, 2020, and each additional extension term exercised thereafter. The monthly rent will increase by 10% over the rent paid during the previous term. Further, the mayor is authorized to execute said agreement.
Second.
Okay. City Clerk.
Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Commissioner Galt.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Commissioner Galt, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Accepting and Investing in Kentucky's Future Incentive Award from the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky in the amount of $400,000, and approving and authorizing the execution of grant agreements between the City of Paducah as fiscal sponsor and the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky to aid the development of an outdoor health park in the Fountain Avenue neighborhood." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the City of Paducah, Kentucky as the fiscal sponsor for the Purchase Area Connections for Health Coalition to accept an Investing in Kentucky's Future Incentive Award from the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky in the amount of $400,000 in aid of the development of an outdoor health park in the Fountain Avenue neighborhood, which project is generally known as the Fountain Gardens Get Fit Youth Wellness Program, and to enter into grant agreements with the Foundation for the distribution of the award in 3-year increments. The ordinance approves the form of the grant agreements presented to the Board of Commissioners of the city with such changes therein as shall not be adverse to the city and may be approved by the mayor, and further authorizes the finance director to make expenditures in an amount not to exceed $75,000 in 3-year increments as the city's share of the local cash match.
Second.
Okay. City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Commissioner Rhodes, please.
Okay, I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Approving Supplemental Agreement to Number 1 between the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Highways, and the City of Paducah, Kentucky for the Olivet Church Road Improvement Project, construction phase, and authorizing the mayor to execute same." This ordinance is summarized as follows: that the City of Paducah hereby approves and authorizes the mayor to execute Supplemental Agreement Number 1 with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Highways, for additional reimbursement funding in the amount of $6,200,000 for the completion of the Olivet Church Road Improvement Project construction phase.
Second.
Is that a run-on sentence?
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Commissioner Wilson, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby amends Section 2645, Competitive Sealed Bidding Generally, Invitations for Bids of Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of Ordinances, to remove the 21-day maximum advertisement time period and to add the Internet as an alternate to advertisement in order to be consistent with KRS bidding requirements.
Seconded.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Commissioner Abraham, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Contract with Paducah-McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau for Specific Services." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The mayor is hereby authorized to execute a contract with Paducah-McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau in the amount of $25,000 to be used for marketing and promoting events and venues related to the 2015 American Quilt Society show. This contract shall expire June 30th, 2015.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. City Manager's report.
Thank you. A couple things tonight. One, I want to make a recommendation to you for the train restoration, and then John Perkins, Finance Officer, is going to make a very brief presentation regarding some formatting changes for this year's budget as we move forward with that. You recall last year in the proposed budget, I recommended the amount of $80,000 to be budgeted for train restoration. The Commission approved the amount of $50,000 in the budget, so we started the process with that amount of money. There were a number of ideas brought forward after the budget, and we ultimately prepared an RFP and sought responses to that on January 22nd. That RFP at that time called for two rear cars to be removed and disposed of, with the following work to be done to both the engine and the tender car. sandblasting, priming, 6 milliliter mils, excuse me, thank you, Rick, polyurethane paint, a polyurethane clear coat, repair and reinstall cab windows, install a back door to the cab, install guards on the ladders and stairs to prevent climbing, and polish and seal the bell, whistle, and valves. We did receive 2 responses back to that solicitation by the bid deadline of February 20th. The low bid was from Wasatch Railroad Contractors in the amount of $110,524. Second bid coming from Cherokee Coating in the amount of $135,055. Both obviously exceeded the budget appropriation of $50,000 by some measure. So after taking plenty of time to study those bids and quite frankly giving a lot of consideration to the issue of where would we go for that amount of money to actually let that bid in that amount, coming forward tonight with a recommendation that, and with some input obviously on primarily the issue of keeping the train intact versus perhaps making it smaller. And by the way, we did solicit some interest in having the back 2 cars removed outside of this RFP, and found out that that really could not be accomplished without some cost to the city, a fairly substantial cost for that matter. So we've come up with a recommendation now that we do this in-house, essentially, make it a project under the Parks and Rec Department under the management of Mark Thompson, and rely on a combination of summer seasonal laborers, probably Class D felons, and 1 or more volunteers under the direction of Mark Thompson to essentially paint the 4 cars. Not go to the extensive process at what we specified, probably not do sandblasting and priming, but do a good power washing and some sort of a sanding to make the surface, the paint surface that exists, enhance the adhesive quality so that the painting would take better. And from there, I think that we could do that inexpensively enough that there would be sufficient funds left in the $50,000 to contract out for some of the other work that was specified, in particular some of the window replacement, the windows in the train, and work associated with making it such that people cannot crawl onto some of the places that they can right now. In other words, welding some barriers, if you will, in place to prevent that, and in the process really reduce the city's liability exposure for someone that might fall. So that's what I would like to do. I'm not here tonight to say that I think that's going to be a 20-year solution necessarily. It's less extensive than what we specified, but it's obviously less expensive, and I think it's worth a try. I'm thinking that we can get this done for well under the $50,000 that has been budgeted, and hopefully hold some of that money back and redirect it for other purposes in our capital budgeting process.
Okay. Any
Any
discussion?
thoughts on that from anybody?
Well, I think it's a great idea.
I'm glad we're keeping, yeah.
The look for less.
Okay. The other thing, and I meant to put this on the agenda, itemize it somewhere on here, and I didn't get that done Friday, so I apologize for it. But City Finance Officer John Perkins would like to share with you a little bit of a formatting change that we're going to do in the budget this year. And I might say that the whole idea here is really to make the budget more of a communication tool for the public or others who might have the need to use it. And then John is also going to visit just briefly about the general fund revenue projections.
Before we leave that totally, will we have to have some kind of vote on that for you to move forward with that?
Well, only in the sense that I'm going to have to redirect money
We'll do that
from an
later.
appropriation into a payroll account. And I think really the only vote you'll have to take is you might have to increase the authorized number of seasonal employees for the summer.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll keep this as brief as possible. As you know, if you've been around a little while, you know that our budget book is large, and we have tried to do something about that. I think last year and the year before that, it was between 320 to 330 pages long, big book, lots of detail, good to take home if you're having trouble sleeping and things of that nature. We are going to try to, we have made an attempt. Last year we took one shot at it. This year we, I think, did an even better job. We'll probably have it down to a third of that size. And the way we did it, I'll show you the format here in a second. It's completely different now. Yeah. Good point. We'll shrink it some more. Every department, well, we added some color to it. You can see that. Get a little splash. We actually stole this idea from somebody else. That was an award-winning document, I think, in Texas someplace. Anyway, we decided every budget, and you should have in front of you, you can take home also. It's kind of blurry the way we did it, but this is just a draft and not really official yet, and it still has typos and stuff in it. But every department will have a like format, and in that you'll see the department's mission, and under each cost center or division, like in this case, you'll see the city manager, the commission, clerk's office. It talks just briefly about what they do. The next page, you'll see what we would lovingly refer to as the body count, or the employees, who they are, where they are, not the person's name, but the position, where they fall on the pay scale grade. And then you can see historically how many bodies there have been over those years. And we've also inserted for the first time, there'll be graphics. This is a great example of why we selected them. Lots of color. We can put graphics, charts, tables, photos. We probably won't put people in there for the most part, but it'll be things like this. Again, this is general government. And then I believe this is police department, and same exact format. Does that say general government? There we go. Sorry about that. Got ahead. Anyway, police department has the exact same format, just like every other department. The larger departments probably will have 3 pages, smaller might have 2, and some funds may have 1. Again, there's consistency throughout the entire book. And you can see here now, there's a lot of white space on this. Again, it's a draft. They haven't yet given us a graphic to insert there, and we will try to fill that with something of interest that would remind you of the police department operation. Then we go, again, each department has an opportunity to talk about what they did last year and what they hope to do in the next year. You should see that throughout. So if you were to take each of these pages and just read those, you'd have a really good idea of what's been happening and what they hope to happen. And then every department, you'll see by year and by type of expenditure, personnel, contractual, and that kind of thing for the entire department. And then you'll see right below that by the cost center or the division how the personnel is laid out over the years. So you can look at it several different ways. And it gives you a good idea of where we've been and where they hope to go. The far right column is yet to be approved. You all haven't approved that yet. It's just a draft. It says adopted, but it is not adopted. But that's where we're kind of headed with that. Now, real briefly, I think you all saw this in a recent publication we sent to you, the graphic I'm going to show you. But the way this works is, as you saw earlier, this is the average annual growth within those decades. The 80s were a great time. You had so much money you didn't know what to do with it. 90s tightened up a little bit, and then 2000s came, and then post-recession took place. We updated this just the other day, and on the far right side there, you can see that little bitty nub of a column. That's less than 1% annual average growth in the last few years in this decade. And so that's kind of what we're faced with. And I show you that to show you where we've been, and we're predicting next year. And I just read in the newspaper earlier that the county has predicted the exact same thing that we were expecting, that their revenue will be flat. Flat is good if you're comparing it to going down, going negative. We don't expect there to be a lot of growth, but it'd be great if it were bigger, but we're going to call less than a half a point growth flat, basically. And city manager requested all departments would keep their requests at where it was. But the challenge that they have is this. There are negotiated wages that are built in already. So if we keep your budget overall flat, you have to figure out how to get that taken care of. We also just came out of a 3-year contract on liability insurance, and insurances have gone up quite substantially. We didn't see much growth in the last several years, but now we are. Everything except for health insurance. Liability insurance has gone up. I think our work comp went up as much as 26%. And some of the liabilities, police liability, public officials liability, general liability, property, I think was the smallest increase, but 10% in that range, between 8 and 10%. And so while we've asked them to keep your overall budget bottom line flat, you got to take on the added expenses of operating a business. And so that's, so far, we've met with most of the departments, and we'll finish that out this week and next. They've done a pretty good job of doing that. And they know this is, you may remember during the recession and just right after it, we did that for 3 years. Last year we kind of opened up a little bit and grew a little bit, but we're kind of back to where we were. Hopefully we're wrong, but I don't think we are. If it improves, that'll be great. But at this point in time, we're keeping things flat. And so we'll do just fine with flat. And that's really all I have, unless you all have some questions, or city manager, if you have something in particular you needed to address. We wanted to keep it very brief for you.
Do you project us having a workshop sometime in May, or?
I expect we're going to have a workshop prior to the budget presentation. We'd actually scheduled that early on, John and I, tentatively for tonight, but we just didn't feel that we were ready. The focus of that workshop, and I think a lot of the decision-making points for the City Commission is going to be on the capital side of it. I think there's going to need to be some prioritization done, maybe some decisions about timing of certain capital projects. So that's what we're gearing up for now. I anticipate that'll be within the next couple of weeks. The operational budget, as John said, with that direction given to the department directors and what I think is their skill and resolve to manage under those circumstances, I think is going to be fairly uneventful. If we see some things there that concern us about what falls outside of the funding capabilities, we would bring those forward in a workshop as well. But again, I think the major emphasis with the commission and the workshop this year is going to be on the capital side.
I'll be out of town that first week in May. That's 2 weeks.
Are you thinking, I know it seems like we've had it at a separate day in the past. Are you thinking that, Jeff, or are you planning on at a meeting here for a workshop?
Well, we've always presented the budget once it's prepared and recommended to you off-site, but what I thought you were referring to was a workshop before that, which is kind of what we've called pre-budget in the past. And even though this was labeled as pre-budget tonight, this was just to light you mainly to formatting changes. I guess we can think about that. I think this is a year on the capital side that really necessitates some interaction with the commission on the capital side before we're able to put a proposed budget together to bring to you. The issues are just too big that I think that we're going to have to deal with some of those one way or the other, and I think that time spent before the budget is packaged and brought to you as a proposal would be better than trying to do it after that.
So, but you don't have a date set?
I think it's in the calendar. I don't
Okay,
know
we'll
off the top of my head, but
we'll get with you the next day or two. We Yeah.
In May.
I'll be gone that first week.
It's not then.
Okay.
We'll get it worked out in the next few
After
days.
that, maybe
I want to say it's the third week.
third.
I'd have to, I don't remember, but I'm pretty
The
sure.
sooner you could get us that date, the
You
better.
bet, you bet.
Okay. Any comments from the commissioners tonight? Okay, the population of Paducah is doubling this week.
Awesome.
Yes. I think one of the largest ones they've had this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this one is. So it's, good to see all those folks in, and if you see them, be sure to give them a shout out. Welcome them to Paducah, and anyone out there as well. Be sure to welcome our guests that are here visiting this year. We have 3 quilters staying with us from Aberdeen, Scotland. So I'm excited to visit with them. Any other comments?
No, I don't.
Happy Quilt Week.
Great.
Any public comments?
Except
Okay, we have an executive session tonight. We will not be coming back to make any decisions. So meeting is adjourned.
Oh, we got to do that.
Oh, the executive session. Who's got it?
I have it.
Okay.
I move that the board go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics. A specific proposal by a business entity where public discussion of the subject matter would jeopardize the location, retention, expansion, or upgrading of a business entity as permitted by KRS 61.8101G.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye.
How'd the label come on?